Good morning, members of Parliament, support staff, radio listeners, and those following by various media. Welcome to the continuation of this meeting of the Committee of Constitutional Affairs and Decolonization number 2 of today, Tuesday, April 4th, 2023. We've established a quorum of 7 members. Please stand for a moment of silence. Thank you. I've received notice of absence from MP Emmanuel and MP Marlin. Do we have any other notifications? I see no need. Thank you, members of Parliament. And the agenda for today's committee meeting is update regarding the submitted resolution from One SXM Association. It is good to note that today's meeting is a continuation of the meeting which was adjourned on December 13, 2022, during which representatives of the One SXM Association were present for a presentation and deliberations on agenda points 1 and 2. A proposal presented by the MP Duncan at agenda point 1 that a petite committee is to be established to create and propose a roadmap towards a possible referendum was supported. Agenda 1 was then adjourned to allow further discussion on the establishment of the petite committee, and agenda point 2 was closed after those deliberations. This committee meeting was scheduled to be reconvened on January 26, but was postponed due to technical difficulties, hence today's meeting. Members of Parliament, as I elucidated, we left off this agenda point with the proposal to establish a petite committee, which did have support of the committee. Just to kind of recap that idea, based on the fact that the One SXM Association has presented many prudent reasons as to why there is a need to consult with the public regarding our constitutional status in terms of independence, as they term it, a yes or a no. And various discussions took place regarding what would be the methodology to do this, what does the Constitution constitute or create a pathway for a referendum? Is it based on legislation, national interest, those factors? And the suggestion, I believe, from MP Duncan was then, being that there are so many of these questions, that all of those details should be worked out, perhaps in consultation also with One SXM, since they've done quite a lot of research in this regard already, to create what we call a roadmap towards a possible referendum, where in this roadmap it would detail that if the Parliament were to decide on such a referendum, well, this would be the possible roadmap for going in that direction. Some of the things that we can consider there would be the legal technicalities of the calling of a referendum, the time frame required for the calling of a referendum, the finances involved in the calling of a referendum, the options that would be listed in such a referendum, so the question to be asked and the option to be given, and all of those other details should be included in the roadmap. What I would propose then, if being that the committee did feel that the route of using a petite committee that would report back to the Constitutional Affairs Committee on the matter, so that they would have the opportunity to informally and in closed door and in working sessions gather this information, similar as this committee, I believe, had done with the establishment of, I think it was the panel discussions. There was a petite committee for that as well. So using that same methodology, the proposal would be to appoint, let's say, 3 members from the Constitutional Affairs Committee to be a part of that. Before going any further on this point, I would like to ask if any members have any comments on this proposal or this agenda point. Yes, MP Duncan. Oh, I'm sorry. I actually saw that MP Westcott Williams had asked to speak first, so I will go back to MP Duncan after.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and a good morning. A good morning to my colleagues, a good morning to yourself and our support staff, a good morning to those in the Tribune, and a good morning to all tuned into this meeting. Mr. Chairman, from my recollection at the end of the previous meeting on this agenda point, when the question was asked regarding participation in this committee, so many persons at the time had indicated their desire to be on the committee that then several of my last words at the time were, it might be an idea for the entire committee to bend itself over this issue in conclave, however, but that everybody have the opportunity to pitch in However, so that according to me was where we actually stopped off. However, I think that the purpose of the committee would, in my opinion, determine whether it's the whole committee or a few members of this committee kind of preparing something for the committee. I'm talking committee of CCAD. So I would really like the objective of the committee, petite or otherwise, to be clearly formulated, because listening to the proposals now and recalling the discussion on the matter previously, I do not think there is a clear position regarding what we expect of the Petit Committee Task Force work group of the committee, whatever we will end up calling it. So again, the last thing in the previous meeting on this agenda point was, well, then maybe the whole committee. Everyone seemed to have been interested to be part of the discussion. That's one thing. So whether it's a petit committee, in my opinion, would depend on what we expect of the committee. So I want that delineated clearly, what the role and what is expected as an outcome from the work of the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, MP. And indeed, that was correct. That did form part of the discussion at the end of the discussion in the last meeting. I did go kind of based on the guidelines here, but one of the things indeed, that's why I listed some of the exact aspects of what would be expected of it. But what we can do is let's hear from MP Duncan, who made that proposal as well, to maybe elucidate further, and then I can propose, if we do go the route of a petite committee, that would still report back to this entire committee, which they'll then say, well, I think we should do this, we should add this, and then a final report on the final roadmap would still be the committee. So just to understand that the role of the petite committee is more of an information gathering role, if I understood it correctly, but I would allow MP Duncan to elucidate further.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning to you. Good morning to the SG, my colleagues here in Parliament, and everyone tuned in. I understand what MP Westcott Williams is saying. My idea of the Petite Committee was indeed following what the Roundtables Task Force sort of executed or accomplished in a simple proposal to the rest of the committee members in terms of themes, timeline, and so forth. So just as you mentioned, what are the logistics of having a consultative referendum? The first since 10-10-10, the first one also two in 23 years. So the logistical work, the legislative work, to me, public relations is going to be extremely important. I would be the first to admit that we often lack in communicating to the public, not only what we're busy with, but what they should expect. So public relations will be a huge part of, to me, what the roadmap could look like and what a proposal to this committee would be. So if we go the route of 3 or 4 persons, then I think those persons would have the responsibility to gather all the information and present to the CCAD. If we don't go that route, then we would still need management or, let's say, leaders in this committee to actively present the information to the rest of the committee members. So I await your and the rest of the committee's opinion on that. Either which way, I would like to be involved. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And before giving the word to MP George Pantoflet, just want to also clarify, according to the notes that we checked, which of course are just, let's say, summarized notes, not the actual minutes, that's why what we're here now is that if there was a committee, according to what was proposed last time, the committee should establish what research will be done. So the CCAD committee as a whole would say, this is the information that we still need. The Petite Committee is just that in between the calling of actual Constitutional Affairs Committee meetings, they can continue to work and gather this information for the committee so that it is easier for us when we meet again. All the information is here about legalities, financials, time frame needed, and stakeholder participation are some of the points we have. I will go now to MP George Pantoflet.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning to the chair, my colleagues in Parliament, of course, our Khifid, and those that are viewing, sitting also at Tribune, One XM. Mr. Chairman, it might sound rhetorical, but definitely I do agree with the statements for my two former colleagues, of course, including yourself. But I want to highlight the issue of, after the committee has been established, the issue of the public relations. To me, that's key as to the public, because we can sit here and even form a committee and have our ideas as to what we want to see done, but it's important that information goes towards the public, because the final decision will be, when the referendum is held, they'll have to decide based on information given. So that's what I want to add, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, MP Pantaflet. So far, in terms of, let's say, if we establish a petite committee, the task would include legal information and applicable laws, financials involved or possible financial involved if a referendum is called, a time frame needed that would be required for the calling of a referendum, list of stakeholders that should be involved in the calling of a referendum, and public relations related to a referendum. So again, the Petite Committee would be tasked with just gathering all of the listed information that I have so far. If there's some additional points, we would then ask that to be added now. And if everyone then is in agreement, then what we would do is make those tasks very clear. And I think there's a proposal for either 3 or 4. What do we think is I think 4 might be okay, or 3? Last time we did. Okay, who all would like to participate in the committee? Because the problem is, if everyone puts up their hand, that's why I'm not doing a show of hands, because last time everyone put up their hands. I'm trying to first establish what the number may be. If it's everyone would like to be a part of it, that's not very effective either. So can we maybe have a different method of sifting it down to 4 members, which is 1/3 of the entire committee? I would not need to participate. I'm already the chair. MP Duncan made the proposal, so it's logical that she should be a part of it. MP Grisha Heilige Martin also indicated that you would definitely like to be a part of it. MP Westcott Williams and MP Gums as well. So, yeah, no? Okay, so actually then we would have, so far, MP Duncan, MP Grisha Heilige Martin, MP Gums, and MP Rumu. That sounds like a pretty good petite committee to me. Yeah, no guys want to volunteer? Okay, this is the Women's Caucus of the CCAD committee. Okay, so MP Duncan, MP Grisha Heilige Martin, MP Rumu, and MP Gums. I will once again read what the, yes, MP Pantaflet.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I might be going ahead of myself, but once the committee has been established, will they be given a timeline in which to come with information? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, I think that should be something discussed. Being that it's really just an information gathering group, not a decision making or anything group, I would say maybe 4 weeks. Would that be sufficient? One week for each of you? So to gather information regarding the applicable laws and legalities, financials, the time frame, meeting stakeholders, public relations. And again, remember, we've received a lot of information on this from the One SXM Association. I'm sure I see Dr. Arundel is in the Tribune and would be happy to help and consult with the Petite Committee to give a lot of this information that's already available. So I would like to propose a maximum of 4 weeks. Is that good? So it will be a maximum of 4 weeks. We have established the members. We've established the 5 points. And then what we will do is at the end of those 4 weeks, we will then call a Constitutional Affairs Committee where the Petite Committee will present their findings to the committee. And once those findings are presented, all members will be able to then contribute. A report of that will be made, and then that will constitute our sort of roadmap to a calling of a referendum for independence. Is that a good working method established by the committee? Okay. Does anyone else have anything else to ask or to say regarding this agenda point? No? Well, members of Parliament, just to recap one more time, we have agreed to establish a petite committee that will consist of MP Duncan, MP Grisha Heilige Martin, MP Angelique Rumu, and MP Melissa Gums. They will be tasked with gathering information related to the calling of, the possible calling of a referendum, and the information gathering will include legal information and applicable laws, financial implications, time frame needed for the calling of a referendum, relevant stakeholders that should be consulted, and a public relations, I guess for lack of a better term, a public relations plan. The committee will report back within the next 4 weeks to the Constitutional Affairs Committee, after which the committee will then be able to weigh in and then further work on the establishment of this roadmap. Okay? Members of the Constitutional Affairs Committee, I would like to thank you for your participation in this meeting. We do have another one that will start at 11 a.m., so I see you all once again in about half an hour. This meeting is now closed. No, not adjourned, right? Close it? Yeah. This meeting is now closed.